Now, when this guy comes into the ring, we see probably the truest warrior in the Pride fighting circuit.
100%. Did you see that preview, the little clip from him against Coleman? Wow.
Akira Shoji, born January 31st, 1974 in Uozu, Toyama, Japan. Known to fight fans around the world as Mr. Pride for his bottomless well of Japanese samurai spirit, no matter the circumstances. For me, and I hope or imagine for many others, Shoji embodies the unwavering heart that captures the awe and inspiration of plebs either here on the internet, like me, or the wannabe martial artists and spectators of a sport that is both a gift to anyone watching and a sacrifice to those that choose to endure it in the ring. So you may be thinking to yourself, why Akira Shoji? Why not someone like Sakuraba or Fedor or even Khabib? And I kind of struggled with that question, honestly, when thinking about making this video. When I thought about it, I thought I could probably tell the same story with Sakuraba. He is my favorite mixed martial artist of all time, and the reason I started grappling a few years ago. And yes, he reached the pinnacle of the sport and also displayed tremendous samurai spirit and heart too, no doubt about it. But there's something special about a guy like Shoji, a guy whose record standing at 36 total bouts with 14 wins and 17 losses that still manages somehow to capture the heart of the fans regardless of his wins, his losses, or even the unlikelihood of a win. Like that one time he fought Semi Schilt, a 7-foot, 256-pound Dutch kickboxer who was the only man in K1 history to win their world championship 3 times in a row and shares the record with Ernesto Hoost, who may arguably be the greatest heavyweight kickboxer of all time, for most Grand Prix won with 4. But there's plenty of videos about the greats, and I wanted my first video to be something a little bit different. So yeah, you have the big spectacle of the main events and the glitz and glamour of fighting for the title. But when it comes to the undercards, we see men like Akira Shoji and think to ourselves, well, maybe that could be me up there. For me, it's like going to an arena concert to see, let's say, the Scorpions or Judas Priest, as opposed to just going to a local hardcore show in Brooklyn. Sure, the arena shows are great and there's the pageantry of seeing a big live show, but there's something about going into a small little crappy dive bar to go see sheer terror on a stage that's like 2 feet high and listen to Paul Bearer berate the crowd that is so much more personal and fun that it's often a better experience, at least in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that Shoji is just some dive bar club fighter. The guy fought on the biggest stage of MMA besides the UFC back then. PrideFC was, in the words of my former Sambo instructor, the pinnacle of MMA, and I tend to agree with that sentiment. The production, the spectacle, the grandiose respect that the Japanese fans showed both the fighters and the events in general was an era of MMA that I don't think we will ever see again. And Shoji fought on that stage with some of the biggest stars in the sport. I mean, his first fight in Pride was against Renzo Gracie. Shoji was 1-1-1 going in, and he fought the legend to a draw. You can't say that isn't badass. And then on top of all that, he grabs the mic afterwards and yells, "What do you say now, Gracies? Who said the Japanese were the weakest?"
Was that textbook? And look at Shoji, come on. Beautiful. Listen to this guy.
And I think that kind of heart and determination is admirable to the average fan. Now, this video isn't about throwing random stats at you, though I might do that too, or breaking down techniques and the various moves and skills he brought to the table. I'm in no way, shape, or form an expert in martial arts, so I'm not equipped to do that properly. I'm just a fan who's occasionally trained on and off throughout the years, and I wanted to show my appreciation for someone who I always loved to watch, and I always highly respected because he went out there and went for it no matter the challenge, and he always was there no matter what to put it all on the line. Shoji has been training in martial arts since high school, originally in the art of judo, and had aspirations of being a pro wrestler. But after a schoolmate by the name of Kazunari Murakami, who some of you might know by way of New Japan Pro Wrestling fame, and who himself holds the unique distinction of competing in the first Pride bout in the promotion's history with a win over American John Dixon, convinced Shoji to try out MMA at a local Wajutsu Keishikai gym. From then, it seems young Shoji was hooked and began training at the dojo full-time to become a professional fighter. His first 3 fights on record were in small promotions, and in his third, he represented his dojo at the Lumax Cup Heavyweight Tournament of J97, but was then eliminated in the first round. It wouldn't be until he made his way to Pride, though, that Shoji really showed what he was made of. On October 11th, 1997, Shoji fought Renzo Gracie at the Tokyo Dome on Pride's inaugural event, the same event that his former classmate Kazunari had just opened for. Honestly, I hadn't watched Shoji fight in so long that this was actually a big surprise to me. He was able to escape a lot of what Renzo was trying to do and make himself competitive. He was going for leg locks and really making it a fight. There was no judges at this event, so it was deemed a draw, but to survive against one of the legends of early MMA like Renzo was honestly a big deal, and I think we should give him credit for that. Shoji would go undefeated in his next 4 bouts, with 2 draws and 2 more wins in Pride, with a notable win being against the Carlson Gracie black belt by the name of Valid Ismail by TKO. He then faced Igor Vovchanchin, an absolute monster of the ring, which, if you know about Igor, you know that a lot of his wins came in doubles and triples, because back in the day there was a lot of tournaments. So this guy was legit, and he is legit. He's one of the legends, one of my favorite fighters of all time. He was able to keep away from Igor's power and survive the bout, but again, impressive, but he didn't do enough to get the nod from the judges, but he put forth a valiant effort. This would set the tone for the rest of Shoji's career as a capable, tough, skilled survivor who fought anyone they put in front of him. He had several strings of losses, some draws here and there, but never really reached the pinnacle of combat sports. But this is what makes guys like Shoji so compelling to think about and talk about, at least for me. What keeps them going? I was thinking the other day about why we tend to become so enamored with so-called lovable losers, and I use that term with the utmost respect and endearment and admiration as a New York Mets fan. What is it that draws us to some people who often are seen as having no chance in hell at whatever endeavor they are trying to achieve? Why do we root for them so voraciously, knowing that it may be all for nothing? Is it a hard question to answer? I don't know. I think, honestly, it's because we see ourselves in them. The same way we root for the biggest winners, the all-time greats, the guys with spotless records and unforgettable skills, because we hope that we can achieve greatness at our own endeavors. I think it's the same way we root for guys like Shoji. Because while reaching the pinnacle of greatness and being the best at what we do in our own contexts, our jobs, our communities, our peer-to-peer relationships, many of us will never attain that status. In fact, most of us never will. And when we root for underdogs, we're in a way rooting for ourselves in our own lives. Our lives are full of day-to-day decisions that we get both right and wrong often. Sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. And oftentimes there's days we feel defeated and stuck in the mud. But when we witness someone who gets a sniff of greatness, who gets a 1,000,000-to-1 shot and goes for broke no matter how insurmountable the task may seem, picks us up and inspires us to grind the stone mill with all the intent to succeed, even when the chances of failure are almost inevitable. It's this connection with the common man that makes Akira Shoji a special character. It doesn't matter that he has a losing record or that he's fallen short more often in his career than not, that he isn't the greatest that ever was. What's more important is that he never gave up on the journey. He never packed up his things. He never took the long walk early. He always fought with intention and purpose and victory, and was always on his mind. Whether that be a 4-fight losing streak or a 2-fight win streak, he poured every ounce of spirit that he could to get a chance at victory. And honestly, at the end of the day, that's what's important. That's why Underdog's winning is important to us. I'd argue that underdog stories are vital to the human spirit and the human condition in general. Without these stories and narratives, how would many of us persevere through hardships? Underdogs give us hope. They are shining examples. They give us a template on how to battle through life when it seems impossible. It's why the Rocky movies made millions of dollars. It's why New York Mets fans always root for their team, no matter how terrible they get. And oh, can they get terrible. We still wear those jerseys and merchandise with pride. I had to get that in there somehow. They are the shining examples that, yeah, we might not be a Sakuraba, and maybe we won't be a Rickson Gracie or a Khabib, but they show us that the path to getting there is with the resilience and the heart to your craft of an Akira Shoji. Maybe he wasn't at the top, but he was a regular on the biggest stage of MMA in the East, holds the recognition of having the most fights in the organization, and is adored by Pride fans all over the world. His nickname is, after all, Mr. Pride. Let me put it this way. Would you rather be a rank and file at a local smoker in some clubhouse in Sunnyside, Queens? Or would you rather be a rank and file in the UFC? To me, that's a pretty easy question to answer. You're still one of the best in the world. Akira Shoji had his 36th and final bout on April 22nd, 2011. He'd been working as a referee for Dream MMA, a promotion led by former Pride executives and K1 promoter FEG. The fight happened at Deep 53 against Kazuo Misaki, the former Pride 2006 welterweight Grand Prix champion, and someone Shoji had actually lost to by submission that same year at a previous Deep event. Unfortunately, I couldn't find tape of the fight, but it went on record as a TKO loss in the second round, and after the bout, both were so overwhelmed with emotion, they were brought to tears by the fact that it would be the last time Shoji would be in that ring as a professional fighter. Even in his last bout, although he was finished, I like to imagine he went out the way he'd wanted and the way he always prepared going in, all heart and determination. In between his first fight and last, it was a roller coaster of a career, some not so great ones and some downright brutal beatings. The Dan Henderson fight, for example, was a little rough to watch. They just weren't on the same league, and Dan Henderson's legendary right hand and power was really apparent. The gap was too great. But when you look at fights like Renzo Gracie, Semi Schilt, Guy Mezger, which may have been a somewhat questionable win for Shoji, and Shogun Rua, those were entertaining fights that I had fun watching, and at the same time showed Akira Shoji had legitimate skills that belie his losing record. We often romanticize figures and places from the past, specifically when it happened during times when we were coming of age or during times in our lives that we feel nostalgia towards. Shoji is one of those figures for me. Pride was happening as I was growing up and in college, and so it's inextricably tied to that part of my life, as are all the fighters of that era. Ask any sports fan who the GOAT of their favorite respective sport is, and no doubt they'll answer will be the guy who was dominant in their formative years growing up. But we can't forget the guys who were in the middle that made the meat and potatoes of fight cards big and small. That fighter for me when it comes to boxing, for example, was the old drunken master Emmanuel Augustus, who, similar to Akira Shoji, had a bad record, but when you saw the man fight, he was really the drunken master. If I remember correctly, Floyd Mayweather had said Augustus had been his toughest fight early in his career. I was too lazy to confirm that, but look it up. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. And look up his fight with Mickey Ward. Just a preposterous show of heart and skill that was voted Fight of the Year for 2001 by Ring Magazine. These guys keep us entertained day in and day out, fight their hearts out and put their bodies on the line not only to put food on their family's table, but in the case of Akira Shoji, for the honor and spirit of the fight. In the documentary film Smashing Machine, we find out that before every match, Shoji would clean his house and prepare his will in the event he never made it out of the ring alive. That kind of dedication and ceremony to the samurai spirit embodies everything that made PrideFC what it was. I couldn't find much on what Akira Shoji was doing nowadays, but I did manage to find his Twitter account, which, surprise, surprise, was all in Japanese. But from what it looks like, it seems he's running either a small restaurant business or a food distribution business of some kind, probably ramen shops. If anyone knows for sure, please post it down in the comment section below. I'd like to know what he's up to. But all in all, he seems pretty happy, and honestly, that feels pretty good. After a long career, he deserves it. The guy fought some of the best in the world at the time, and win or lose, gave it all. Gilbert Avell, Dean Lister, Paulo Filho twice, Murillo Hua, Shogun Hua, Jeremy Horn, Semi Schilt, Dan Henderson, Ricardo Almeida, Mark Coleman, Guy Mesger, Igor Vovchanchin, Renzo Gracie. I mean, I don't think you could carve out a better list for a guy who was a mid-card guy and who was never a champion. I can only say I hope he lives a long, happy life, and I know he's putting everything he has in whatever endeavors he's decided to pursue, because that's probably the only way he knows how. I don't think you could ask for a better ambassador to the sport, even if he was never a champion. He was the living embodiment of the samurai way that is so typically associated with the Japanese for us in the West. Unyielding, unwavering, with honor and dignity in everything that he does. I think I speak for all of us when I say that you are very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Shoji. Or rather, I should say, Mr. Pride. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and let me know why in the comments section below. If you didn't like it, well, let me know that too, because I'm a sucker for punishment and this is the internet, so that's what we do out here. Who are some of your favorite underdogs, real or fictional? Who inspires you? Or maybe you think underdogs are overrated and we should only admire those at the very top. Either way, I'd like to hear your opinion. I'm just covering topics and people I find interesting, and I hope you found that interesting too. Again, thanks for watching. I'm InfoDoom, and